All right, guys. All right, guys. So we're going to go on and get started. So what we are starting today is factoring. Now, factoring, we're doing back over this. We've done factoring before. Most of this is going to be refresher stuff we've done before. There is a little bit that's going to be new, stuff that we just didn't have time to cover in chapter 4 with our higher degree polynomial functions. We're going to be going over that too and going over all of this here. Now, looking back to last semester, chapter 1, chapter 2, y'all did great, doing well, paying attention, focusing during the lesson, doing the homework, asking questions. I feel like chapter 3 and 4 did the test did, especially averages, were not as good, not because, in my opinion, that the material got harder. I feel like the effort, y'all's paying attention, doing the homework, waiting to do all the homework all at once, not asking questions, looking up just the answers, hurts you in the end. Because if you're not doing the homework, not doing the problems, not practicing it, and then trying to jump into the test and do the problem for the first time, even though, yes, we've done them in class, we do them together, you have not done one on your own. Yep. And that could have been a little bit of it too. But again, we're starting a new semester, so we need to lock in and start this here. Now, factoring, yes, there's a lot of programs that'll do it, that'll just give you the factors and be done. But once we see this and get used to this, it is going to be helpful in our next chapter, especially with rational expressions, rational equations, to be able to factor. And once we get this down and we start seeing the factors and doing the steps, for the most part, you're going to be able to factor it faster than you can type it in and let the thing do it for you. Now, when we went over factoring last time with these quadratics, we had 5 main steps for factoring quadratics and some of these higher degree polynomial functions. Now, the first big one is greatest common factor. We always need to look for a greatest common factor first, no matter what the setup. So we're looking for something in common with each of the terms. With quadratics, we go to 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. We find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Then we find the factors of the first and third term, plug in and check. So when we look at the first example here, b squared plus 12b plus 20, is there a greatest common factor? Is there something in common with all 3 terms? 1, because b squared, b, no variable, so b is not going to be a greatest common factor. Number in front of b squared is 1, 12, 20. There's not a number in common besides 1. So since there's no greatest common factor, we're going to move on to step number 2 for these quadratics, which is our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. And then we're going to try to find the sign. And when we're trying to find the sign, we look at the third term. We look at the sign of the third term, our 20. If that 20, that constant term, that third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If this sign is negative, the signs are opposite. Since it's positive, it says the signs are the same. So they're either both going to be positive or both going to be negative. And it matches the sign of that middle term. This sign tells us that they're the same. This tells us that they are both positive. Questions on any of this so far? Questions on any of this so far? Now, factors of the first and third term. So our factors of the first term are b squared, and our third term is our 20. Now, we didn't always list out the factors of the first and third term. And the main reason for it was factors of b squared. Well, the only two things, or only things that we multiply together to get b squared is going to be b and b. We do have 1 and b squared, but that doesn't help with factoring. So the only factors of b squared are b and b. And whenever we had only one set of factors, we just went on and plugged them in. Because there's only one option, there's only one arrangement, we plug those in. Now, factors of 20. Well, we have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. And I just start with 1 and 20 and then see, is 2 a factor? It is, 2 and 10. Then I would check 3. 3 is not a factor of 20. 3 does not divide or into 20 evenly. So we move to 4, which is 4 and 5. The next number after 4 would be 5. It's already listed, so we're done. Now we need to pick one of these, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, or 4 and 5. 2 and 10. Because we're already starting into step number 5, plug in and check. So we plugged it in, now we need to check. Now we're not going to check all the distributive property here. We're not going to multiply this all the way out. At least I don't. Because our b times b is b squared. Well, we found the b and b from the factors of b squared. Factors by definition multiply back together to give us the term. So those should multiply back together. Same with 2 times 10. 2 times 10 is 20. Those are the factors of 20. They multiply together to give us 20. The main term that changes, depending on the setup, is going to be the middle term. So we checked it, because b times 10 is positive 10b. 2 times b is going to be positive 2b, and 10b plus 2b is 12b, which is the middle term we wanted. Telling us that b plus 2 times b plus 10 are the factors. And that's it. If we don't get the correct middle term, first thing we can do is we can try flipping the 10 and 2. This case won't change much. And if that's not it, then we try 4 and 5 or 1 and 20. But if we get it, we're done. We have the correct middle term. We move on. Questions on this here? Let's look at the next one. A squared plus 4a minus 32. Is there a greatest common factor between a squared, 4a, and 32? 1. That's it, isn't it? Yeah. So we move on to our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, our third term sign is, so the number is 32, but the sign is negative. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. We don't even really look at the middle term for our signs. We just know one is going to have to be positive, one is going to have to be negative. Questions on this so far? Factors of the first and third term. So the first term is what? A squared, yes? There's not a number in front of it besides 1, so we're really just looking at the factors of a squared. What's the only things that multiply together to give us a squared? A and a. If there was a number in front of a squared, we put its factors in front of the 2 a's, but even then, we can put a and a. We know those have to be the factors of a squared. 32. There's more than one of the factors of 32, because we have 1 and 32. 2 and 16. 3 doesn't work. 4 and 8. 5 is not a factor of 32 because 32 does not end in a 0 or 5. 6 is not a factor because both 2 and 3 have to be factors, and that's it. Now we just need to try one of these here. 4 and 8. What goes first? 4, 8. And again, at this point, I would just plug them in and check and see if we get the correct number. Now, a times negative 8 is going to be negative 8a. Positive 4 times positive a is positive 4a. And negative 8a plus 4a, negative 8 plus 4 is going to be negative 4a. Is that the middle term we wanted? I mean, yes and no. Is it the correct number? Yeah, it's 4, but it's the wrong sign because we want positive, not negative, yes? If we get the correct number but wrong sign, flip the signs. Because if I switch them, we now have a times positive 8, which gives us positive 8a. Negative 4 times positive a is going to be now negative 4a. And 8a minus 4a is positive 4a, like we wanted. Make sense? Now, yes, if we wanted to, we could have just switched the 8 and 4, and that would have done the same thing. And that works because the numbers in front of a, in both cases, is both 1. If they're the same, just flipping those works just fine. Questions on this here? X squared minus 17x plus 72. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No. One of the big indicators there's not is because there's not a number in front of x squared, so there's not going to be a number besides 1 in common with all three. Third term doesn't have a variable, so there's not going to be a variable in common. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, here our third term sign is positive. So the signs are the same, and they're going to match that sign of the middle term. So they have to be negative and negative. Questions? Now, the reason we know the signs are the same is because the only way I can multiply these two numbers together and get a plus is it's either they're both negative or both positive. And we combine, we add the middle terms together. So if the middle term is negative, the signs have to both be negative. Now we're going to find the factors of the first and third terms. Our first term is x squared. Well, the only factors of x squared are x and x, the variable times itself. Variable times itself. Now, 72, on the other hand, has a few. Because we do have 1 in 72. Because 72 is even, it is divisible by 2. Be 2 and 36. Because we can just say 72 divided by 2, 36. 72 is also divisible by 3. 3 times 24. 72 is also a factor, or 4 is a factor of it. 18. 5 is not a factor because it does not end in a 0 or 5. 6 is a factor because 2 and 3 are both factors. 6 and 12. 7 is not. But then we do have 8 and 9. Now I know to stop at 8 and 9 because, well, the next factor, possible factor after 8 is 9, and it's already listed. Which one do we want to try first? 8 and 9. It really doesn't matter at this point which one we try first. We just need to pick one of the sets of factors and check it. X times negative 9 is going to be negative 9x. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. And negative 9x minus 8x, negative 9 minus 8 is negative 17. Is that the middle term we wanted? Yep. That's it. All right, let's look at number 10. Greatest common factor. Is there one between these three terms? No. X squared, 7x, and 30. 30 does not have a variable. X squared does not have a number in front of it besides 1. So they kind of tell us there's not a greatest common factor. So we move on to our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Since the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. Because the only way we can multiply two together and get a negative is if one is positive and the other is negative. Factors of the first and third term. Factors of x squared, well, the only ones we have are x and x. Factors of 30. 1 and 30. 2 and 15. 5 times 6. 4 doesn't work. 5 and 6. And that's it. Which one do we want to try first? 3 and 10?
May I have your attention? May I have your attention, please? The 6-hour race car class will go to the library today. That's the 6-hour race car class will go to the library today. Thank you.
Then we can check the middle term. X times negative 10. Positive x times negative 10 would be negative 10x. 3 times x, positive 3 times positive x is positive 3x. Negative 10x plus 3x, negative 10 plus 3. We can do negative 10 plus 3 in the calculator if we need. Does give us the negative 7x, and we are done. Yes. The biggest thing I would say with factoring, the more of them that you do, the easier you'll see the factors and the possible arrangements. It's one of those few things that doing, it's more doing and seeing patterns than anything else. Questions on this here? P squared plus 15p plus 50. Well, there is no greatest common factor between p squared, 15p, and 50. So we can move on to our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Here, the sign of our third term is positive. So the signs are the same. We're going to match the sign of the middle term, which is also positive. So we have plus and plus. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. So the factors of p squared are and p. Factors of 50. 1 and 50, 2 and 25. 3 is not a factor. 4 4 is not a factor. 5 and 10. Which one do we want to use first? 5 and 10. P times 10 is going to be positive 10p. 5 times p is positive 5p. 5p plus 10p, 10 plus 5p. That is the middle term we wanted. So we are questions on this here. We're ready for the next one. So, looking at this here, we only have one or two more. Is there a greatest common factor between 2r squared, 6r, and 8? 2, yes? Common factor of 2. We want to factor that out. We want to divide that 2, that greatest common factor, out of all three terms. Because if there is one, we can take it out. It's going to make it easier to factor. We have less factors to look at. Because if I factor 2, we divide 2 out of 2r squared, we're left with r squared. If we divide the 2 out of 6r, 6 divided by 2 would be 3r. And our 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now we still need the 2 out front. We still need that greatest common factor of 2, because that's still part of the answer. But we factor it out first. Since we finished removing the greatest common factor, since we finished pulling it out of all three terms, we can move on to our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now we're going to look for the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Since our third term is negative, our signs are indeed opposite. One's going to be positive, one is going to be negative. Factors of the first and third term, factors of r squared have to be r and r. Factors of 4 are 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. 1 and 4. We're just going to plug them in and check. R times negative 4 is negative 4r. 1 times r is positive 1r. Negative 4r plus r, negative 3r. Yes, sir. So where we put the 4 and where we put the 1? Oh, the factors of 4? No. Here we go. Yeah. Oh. So whichever one goes first, it really doesn't make a difference which one, how we write it out. I'm just multiplying left to right. So I always start with the outer 2, r times negative 4. Because we're going to take it in the middle, 1 times r, and combine those. Because that's really all we're doing, combining those like terms. So really, it could have been r minus 4r. 1 minus 4r is still negative 3r. Yeah, the order of that really doesn't make a difference. But I would just make sure our signs do hold true. Now, for this here, 3r is the number we want, but we want it what? Positive, not negative. So to fix that, the easiest thing we can do is flip the signs. And if we flip the signs, r times 4r, positive 4r, gives us positive 4r. Negative 1 times r is negative r, giving us the positive 3r that we wanted. So 2 times r minus 1 times r plus 4 is the correct set of factors. 2 is questions on these here? Yes. Mm-hmm. So essentially, when we find the greatest common factor, we're really just dividing it out of all three terms. You're welcome. Yeah, because if we went and multiplied it back through, 2 times r squared would get us back to 2r squared. 2 times r 3r would get us 6r. 2 times 4 gives us that at 8. So it makes it a little bit nicer. Because when I'm finding the factors of the first and third term, I'm not looking at 2r squared anymore, just r squared. So I don't have to find factors of 2. 8 gives us 1 and 4, or 1 and 8, 2 and 4, gives us more that we're looking at. Now we're just looking at 4. Takes it a little down, a little bit simpler. Let's look at number 9. 4x squared minus 20x minus 56. So we need to find the greatest common factor between these three terms, if there is one. Because there's a 4 in front of x squared, it's telling me there's a good chance that there is, yes? Well, now we need to figure out all the possible numbers that can go into 4, 20, and 56, yes? Well, we only have really 2 options. Because what is our smallest number there? 4. So the biggest number I could divide out of all 3 is 4. Because the main 2 numbers we'd have to try are what? 2 and 4. Because those are the only factors that we have of 4. That first term that would work. So the first thing I would look at, as we can see, is 20 divisible by 4. It is. And our other number is 56. And 56 is divisible by 4. All right, guys. Focus in. So it's just telling us that the greatest common factor has to be 4. And if we factor 4 out of 4x squared, we divide it by 4, we're left with x squared. Since we're just taking out positive 4, the signs aren't going to change. 20 divided by 4 is going to give us 5. Still have our x. And we divide 56 by 4, we're left with 14. And we can look back at our x squared minus 5x minus 14. At this point, there's nothing left in common. If there was, we'd factor it out and put it up next to that 4. But now that we have this here, we can go on and find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. So we would have here plus and minus. Since that third term is negative, signs are opposite. Factors of the first term. Well, the factors of x squared are x and x. Now the nice thing, since we did take that greatest common factor of 4 out, I'm not looking at 4x squared anymore. Just x squared, it's just x and x. If we did have 4x squared, we'd have to see the factors of 4, 1 and 4, 2 and 2. That's a whole set of factors we've gotten rid of, we don't have to worry about. Factors of the third term, factors of 14. We'll have 1 and 14. 2 and 7. And that's it. We can try 2 and 7. X times negative 7 would be negative 7x. 2 times x is plus 2x. Negative 7x plus 2x, negative 7 plus 2, negative 5x. Is that the middle term we wanted? That's it. You would move the down the 4. Because we're talking about it in factored form, so we want it to be able to go back to the top. Because the 4 is still part of our answer. It's still part of the factors of it. Now, when we solved, if we were solving for it, the 4 doesn't mean a whole lot to us. But we do need it in factored form to get back to where we start. Now, especially if this does show up on the ACT, factoring given the following polynomial, factor it completely. Again, I'd be paying attention to your answer choices. We know 4 is the greatest common factor. For it to be factored completely, it has to be pulled out front. That means any of the answer choices that does not have 4 as the greatest common factor out front, we can remove, which is kind of nice on the ACT. Yeah, looking at the ACT, it is multiple choice. I don't do multiple choice because we can just throw logic at it that way. We also know because the third term is negative, the signs have to be opposite. So any of the answer choices that have either both plus or both minus are now gone. So it gives us ways, especially on the ACT, to just start removing choices because we know what the answer has to be. Questions on this here? Do we feel a little more comfortable with factoring than we did before? Okay. We're going to do one more, and then I'm going to give you the rest of the time to work on the assignment, get started on it. 3x plus x squared minus 10. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? What's different with this problem? It's not written in standard form. If they ever give you a problem or you come across a problem that's not in standard form, especially with factoring, get in standard form. X squared, x constant term. Now, since it was not written in standard form, x squared was not first, then our x term, then our constant term, we need to get it back in that form so that we can actually start factoring this. Now, there is no greatest common factor between the three terms. So we just go back to our two sets of parentheses with three spaces. Since the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Factors of x squared are x and x. The only set of factors for 10 are 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Which set of factors do we want to try first? 2 and 5. Which one do you want to put first? 2, 5. X times negative 5 would be negative 5x. 2 times x is positive 2x. Giving us negative 3x. So we just need to switch the signs, which will now give us positive 5x minus 2x gives us positive 3x. And that's it. And we're going to do more factoring like this tomorrow. But it's essentially going to be almost the exact same.